A local author recently wrote a book about the riots of 1967 and the report on race in America that followed. And he says much of the same sentiment that fueled those riots fueled the unrest we saw in 2020 after the police killing of George Floyd.
Fox 4 Shaun Rabb sits down with Ken Lesberg in this week's Here and Now conversation. Take a look.
I am visiting. I want to introduce you to Dallas author Rick Lesberg, who's just written a new book called Two Societies, the riots of 1967 and the Kerner Commission report that followed. Rick, tell us, what is your book about?
It's about really the workings of a special committee that President Johnson appointed in 1967.
Okay.
And that year, there were over 150 riots in different cities throughout the country, not just Newark and Detroit that most people recall, but places in Nebraska and Iowa and Arizona that you would not have expected. They concluded that it wasn't riffraff or communists or losers that were responsible for the rioting. They believed that the rioting was a response to decades of pervasive discrimination and segregation. And what my book talks about is how they went about doing this. There had never been that kind of investigation before on such a large scale.
So for folks to know, you are considered to be the most knowledgeable person in this country on the workings of the Kerner Commission.
I conducted about 30 interviews with people who either served on the commission, family members of people who had served on the commission staff, and then the consultants who advised the commission.
In 2020, following the murder of George Floyd, we saw across the country, urban communities, rural communities, riots in the streets again. You say what as you look at compare and contrast the two? Same reasons behind it or what?
The same reasons identically. Almost all the riots in 1967 were triggered by an incident involving an African-American and police. The major difference between the 1967 riots and the 2020 disorders are numerous. The 67 riots were almost exclusively male and were exclusively African-American. The 2020 disorders, and I want to make a distinction, not every protest turned into a riot or a disorder in 2020. I need to make that very, very clear. It's something on the order of like 98% of all the protests were peaceful and orderly. Having said that, the disorders in 2020, it's almost 50-50 Anglo and Black. A third of the participants in 2020 were also female. The 1967 riots were all within Black neighborhoods. The 2020 disorders were more in downtown or public spaces outside of City Hall, for instance, or are there some sort of plaza? The level of violence, more importantly, was much, much less in 2020 than it was in 1967.
I hear you say almost identical. Are you saying that the two societies still exist? Are you saying that we haven't made progress?
We have made a great deal of progress. It's undeniable. Yet at the same time, we still see a Black unemployment rate that is almost always twice that of the national average, no matter how low the national average is. We still have Black median income that's only about 2/3 of what white median income is. So we've made a lot of progress, but as I say, and people ask me, is the glass half full or half empty? And I say yes. We've made a lot of progress to where the glass is now half full. It was not that way 50, 60 years ago, but we need to be cognizant that we still have further to go.
What is it you want people to understand and take from your book and from your comparison and contrast to 67 and 2020?
There's really a number of things. One is that I think it's important to go back and look at how the commission made its conclusions and made the statements that it did. These people somehow came together and not just produced a report that was boldly worded and frankly shocked a lot of white America, but it was unanimously adopted. And when you think about that in the context of today, of how polarized we are and how difficult it is for us to talk about race, as we've seen about DEI or how we talk about slavery in public schools, there's got to be a message in there for how we can return to that spirit of cooperation and put our personal beliefs or agendas behind us and try to reach for the greater public good. The other is that you never know how far you've gone on any journey unless you know where you started. And the Kerner report with its documentation will give us the opportunity to know, yes, we've made progress. We really, really have. But yet there's still further to go.
Rick Lesberg, Two Societies, the name of the book. Everyone ought to read it. It's good for stimulating thought and perhaps ideas for how two societies can truly become one. thank you for talking with us about the book.
Thank you for the opportunity, Shaun.
All right, one more look at that book, Two Societies, Rick Lesberg. It's available online and at many major retailers.